Jupiter, the planet of growth, optimism, and abundance, stations retrograde, becoming the 5th planet currently retrograde on Wednesday, October 9th. And until February 4th, 2025, we will need to do some introspection, course correction, and potentially give back some of the gifts Jupiter offered us. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive astrology. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you have been here for a while, please show your support by leaving a like or a comment, subscribing, and pressing that notification bell. You can also watch another one of my videos and say thank you by buying me a coffee or croissant or tea. I really appreciate everyone who takes advantage of that. Before we dive in, if you feel confused in life, you have questions, and you want to work with me one-on-one, you can book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. On my website, you can also find a variety of products I create, for example, my 2025 planner, or my candles and oils. In this video, I'd like to highlight my Jupiter in Taurus candle, since we are talking about Jupiter going retrograde and Jupiter also being in the sign of its detriment of Gemini. You might enjoy Jupiter empowered in the sign of Taurus, co-present with Venus in Taurus, and that is what makes it empowered, because it's in the same sign as the ruler. This candle can help you find optimism, abundance, manifest things. It smells like banana bread, and highly recommend this for the retrograde period. Also, if you were born with Jupiter retrograde, if your natal Jupiter is in Capricorn, Virgo, or Gemini, if it's in the 12th, 8th, or 6th houses, and if it's maybe conjunct or opposite Saturn, because Saturn can limit some of the abundance of Jupiter. Okay, so let's talk about it. Like I said, Jupiter is the planet number 5. We already have Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto retrograde. So Jupiter rounds up the list of the outer planets being retrograde. This retrograde will last, like I said, it begins on October 9th, lasts until February 4th, 2025. And it will travel backwards from 21 degrees, 20 minutes Gemini until 11 degrees, 16 minutes Gemini. So you can expect it to affect you the most if you have planets between 8 and 24 degrees mutable signs, which are Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces. And let's talk about in general, what does Jupiter retrograde means. Jupiter is the planet of growth. It's the greater benefic in astrology, and it's sort of on the same plane with Venus, but Venus is a lesser benefic. Venus describes an experience of having a good day. The light is green as you cross the street, you go to the park, you have your favorite meal, you hang out with people you love, you laugh, you smile, you cuddle and hug and do all the good things. Versus Jupiter represents more kind of soulful, purposeful things, right? It has to do with the law and community and things we're leaving behind. And so Jupiter tries to bring wisdom into our life. Jupiter represents what we find promising and wise and important for us, right? Jupiter represents the optimism we have. It represents the gifts of the universe. It represents how we grow and what we want to leave behind. Jupiter on some levels is very similar and quite different from Saturn, right? Like, it's different because Saturn represents limitations and Jupiter represents possibilities, but it's similar in a way that Jupiter wants to leave things behind, and so does Saturn. They just look at them slightly differently. Jupiter is currently in Gemini. It went into Gemini on May 25th, stays in Gemini until June 9th. And in Gemini, Jupiter is all about the intellect. It's all about the multitude of ideas and possibilities. It is in its fall because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Gemini is the sign opposite the sign Jupiter rules, because, you know, in Sagittarius, we know the truth. Sagittarius is all about feeling that things are right. People with Jupiter and Sagittarius have very strong morals, strong principles, while Jupiter in Gemini is a lot more about, but like, let's debate it. What about this? What about that? And so Jupiter, the planet of sort of Jupiter wants to unite things, similarly to Venus, the lesser benefic, right? Jupiter wants to find the guiding principle, the concept, the ideal. And in Gemini, it's like, well, but what about this and that? And so with Jupiter in Gemini, we may notice that there is a lot of possibilities. There is a lot of sort of social events we go to, a lot of projects we pursue. But maybe with, the fact that Jupiter is about to turn retrograde, maybe we've overextended ourselves. Maybe we've bitten more than we could chew, right? And so as Jupiter stations retrograde, you are encouraged to narrow it down. You may feel less enthusiastic about some things, right? And that could be your indicator that some of the projects you're pursuing, some of the initiatives are maybe not meant to stay. And so while you're realizing this, you may need to do some course correction, right? What needs to be released, what needs to be recommitted to, what needs to be edited, where do we need to go back to the drawing board and maybe, like I mentioned, also do some inner development, focus on improving ourselves before we go forward in these new pursuits. Checking in with ourselves, right? Feeling more introspective, focusing more on self-improvement, self-understanding versus just doing too many things. Like Jupiter in Gemini could be the time you're working on the website or the time you're building social media account. You're just like you're pursuing a bunch of projects that involve teaching, speaking, writing, publishing. And so when Jupiter is retrograde, you have to be like, okay, but what is my message? What am I trying to say? What is the calling behind all of these projects? Because Jupiter in Gemini is beautiful for igniting your ideas, but it's not always good for doing all the things at once. So I think this could be the time when you're maybe dealing with some delays. Maybe you're backtracking. Sometimes, the retrograde could also be the time when you're giving back some of the gifts Jupiter offered you. And all of that is meant to remind you that that's okay. That things that are meant to stay and things that are meant to work out will stay. But before you get there, you will have to reflect, redo, rethink, reconnect with yourself, and maybe like learn some patience, right? You will be tested on some levels. I think if things don't go your way, if you are dealing with delays, Jupiter retrograde will encourage you to once again sort of narrow it down, recommit, compromise, and work on, when I say also that, like inner development, right? What happens when things don't go your way? What happens when you get overwhelmed? Perhaps it's the time to focus on believing in yourself. It's the time to say some positive affirmations, to focus on like building your confidence in yourself. And some of the projects might be redirected. Some of the projects may need to be changed and adjusted. Some of the past ideas might return into your life because we are looking backwards at something that maybe once excited us, but not so much anymore. What's interesting is Jupiter retrograde will coincide with Mars retrograde between December 6th and February 23rd. And Jupiter is retrograde until February 4th. So part of the time when Jupiter is retrograde, Mars will be retrograde, and Mars will be retrograde in Leo and Cancer, and Cancer is the sign of exaltation of Jupiter. So there's going to be, like, I feel like this could be a bit of a crisis of faith in ourselves, in our pursuits, in our goals. And with Mars, maybe a lack of initiative, feeling like this crisis of faith is making us impotent on some level, just like stagnant and stuck. And so needing to once again kind of connect with something that is guiding you, that is inspiring you, could be quite important here. If you're looking for a personal analysis, you want to know what's ahead for you, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. We can talk about your relationship, your natal chart, your year to come, and more. So let's break it down for all 12 rising signs, starting with Aries rising. If you are an Aries rising, Gemini is your third house. So Jupiter is traveling backwards through your third house. And so with the third house and Jupiter being here, right, you may have gotten invested and gotten like focused on a lot of projects that deal with communication, writing, speaking, blogging, learning. And so with Jupiter retrograde, some of those projects might fall back. Some of those projects may no longer feel inspiring to you. And so I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What is your message, right? With third house being the place of communication, Jupiter is retrograding here. It's like, what are you trying to say? What is your truth? What are you trying to kind of get out there in the world? And so focus on taking a step back and maybe first figuring out what your message is and then working on those projects. The retrograde in the third house could suggest a need to have some conversations about the past, a need to discuss some uncomfortable matters, maybe with your siblings, maybe with your neighbors, maybe with your teachers or mentors. You're maybe focusing a little bit more on the inner development, like focusing on your speech, focusing on your connection to community, on your everyday life and how it serves sort of better mental state versus spreading yourself in a multitude of directions. It could be a great time for journaling, for meditation, for therapy, for sort of speaking things out and verbalizing them and like expressing a little bit of like angsty Gemini energy, because the retrograde in Gemini could also be the time when you're trying to find a little bit of peace in the loud Gemini chatter. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Taurus rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your second house between October 9th and February 4th, 2025. And so with Jupiter being in your second house, you may have explored a lot of projects, a lot of sort of spiritual projects, writing projects, intellectual projects. And so with Jupiter retrograding here, there might be a need to backtrack, to take a step back, to maybe let some of those projects go and wonder which ones of them actually build your confidence and make you feel more secure. Financial matters may need to be rethought, and maybe you're feeling a little bit uninspired, right? With Jupiter in the second house, maybe you're feeling like your projects are not bringing you the blessings that you seek. So having to review the projects also for whether they are lucrative, whether they're worth your time, whether they are helpful to you or your community or other people, might be likely, right? I think with Jupiter in the second house, you're also wondering whether the things you're doing are spiritual and helpful and interesting, right? Like whether they deserve your attention or not. The questions of self-belief will be important here too, right? In the second house, we're talking not only about money, but also about your faith in yourself. And so when Jupiter is retrograde and some of your projects are not immediately working out and some of the resources are not easily accessible, this might be the time when you are like figuring out the best use for your resources, the best use for your knowledge, the best sort of use, and like also working on believing in yourself, right? Like I said, like working on believing in yourself, working on maybe investing in yourself instead of spreading all of this energy and focusing on making money. This could be the time when you're focusing on improving yourself. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Sorry, I got distracted by my window seat that I'm sitting on. If you are a Gemini rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your first house. So with Jupiter being in your first house since May 25th, you could have been growing a lot. You may have started a number of personal projects. You may have changed your look, modified your style, taking on a role of a teacher, a mentor, a guide for other people. And so when Jupiter retrogrades, there may be a sense of like slowdown and delays, and sort of some of those projects may feel less inspiring, or you may run into some kind of conflict, some kind of challenges to your projects and your goals. You may be feeling unsure about your knowledge, right? If we're talking about Jupiter being a teacher, a guide, a mentor to others. So if you are feeling unsure, Jupiter in the first could be a great time to work on self-confidence, to work on your health too, right? Like the first house is your identity, it's your energy levels, it's your speech, your appearance. So Jupiter being retrograde in the first house could also suggest that like maybe you need to invest in your health, you need to invest in your look, you need to invest in building your mental state and sort of building yourself up before you can show up in the world as that guide, guru for other people. Could be the time, like if we're talking about Gemini and intellectual projects, when you need to gather some knowledge, you need to come up with a strategy, you need to allocate some time, allocate some resources, work on understanding something, and maybe like work on also figuring out what is it that's truly important to you before you invest time into these projects. Sometimes Jupiter retrograding can actually help like health matters get better, especially if you were dealing with some kind of like inflammatory issue, because Jupiter retrogrades, it brings the inflammation back, helping you heal. So yeah, like perhaps, in this chase for outside validation and outside pursuits, you may have forgotten a little bit to tend to your body and your health and your wellness. So Jupiter going retrograde might be the time you reconsider. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. If you are a Cancer rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your 12th house, and you may run into matters that are more hidden. There might be roadblocks that are a little bit harder to figure out, but they potentially have to do with your self-doubt, right? Like 12th house is the place of self-undoing. And maybe with Jupiter being direct for a while, you had focused on travel projects, on imagination, on spiritual pursuits. You may have focused on self-understanding, healing, yoga, etc. And when Jupiter is retrograde, you will get tested, and some of those pursuits may feel less exciting. So your commitment to them will get tested. Your commitment to yourself will get tested. But you may run into some sort of pushback, some uncertainty in regards to foreign travel, in regards to healing, imagination, spirituality. Maybe you're feeling a little less inspired, a little bit more fearful of the future, a little bit more prone to escape. So I think Jupiter retrograde will encourage you to connect, to like persevere through those feelings of fears, and like connect with spiritual practices and maybe therapy and people who are actually uplifting and supportive. Rethinking your beliefs, rethinking where the fears come from might show up here as well. Meditation, therapy, astrology, research are all really, really great sort of medicine at this time, as well as maybe like, being outside, moving your body, doing yoga could be great too. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. If you are the lovely Leo rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your 11th house. And with Jupiter being direct from May 25th until now, you may have, went out there, connected with a lot of people, built new friendships, ventured on social media, started new projects. And now that Jupiter slows down and goes retrograde, you may feel a little bit more private. You may feel like some of those connections, maybe they don't feel aligned with who you are. Some flaws and some challenges in friendships may get revealed, like, some kind of disagreements from the past in your friendships might come up. You may also notice that maybe you are not spiritually aligned with what you're doing, because Jupiter retrograde might be the time when you are focusing on like inner development, you know, doing work that heals other people, that helps other people. And with it retrograding in your 11th house, you will be very much questioning, are people around you, are they similar to you? Are they similarly minded? What are their goals? What are their guiding principles? You definitely may feel like less excited about the groups you belong to, and maybe even less excited about social media. And it's not the worst thing to feel, right? Because like once in a while we have to rethink our strategy. Let's say you're a TikToker and you've been putting content about your dog, but now you feel ready to share something else. So needing to like get clear on what your message is, on what you're trying to achieve, and maybe slow down a little bit in the outward like search for connections and search for recognition before you proceed is highlighted here. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now, if you are the lovely Virgo rising, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 10th house of career, status, and reputation. And with this transit, your career matters may need attention. Your professional progress may slow down. If you felt like things have been like going and rolling and you have been taking action and looking for opportunities and starting new projects, the progress may slow down. And some of the projects may not work out or get restricted, get delayed, get slowed down somehow, asking you to prioritize those that are important. The Gemini tendency is to do too many things at once, to get excited about too many things. So with Jupiter retrograde, you will be very much asking, what is it that's spiritually fulfilling to you? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? What are you trying to teach the world, share with the world? And so professional opportunities that fulfill that are the ones that you need to commit to, right? Versus the ones that don't satisfy you spiritually, or if the job feels a little bit toxic and taxing and frustrating, maybe it's the time to take a step back, to retreat, right? Like with the retrograde of Jupiter in the 10th house, you might also be looking back at what you once tried to achieve professionally. You might be bringing back old projects, even reconnecting with sort of old bosses coming back into your life, and maybe redoing, rethinking, releasing even some jobs for the ones that are more satisfying and attuned to your soul's desires. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now, if you are the beautiful Libra rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your 9th house, and this could bring delays, frustrations, challenges involving education, travel, publishing, and legal matters. It can also suggest 9th house is very much the place of like high mind and higher learning. So Jupiter retrograde here could suggest that you're a little bit unsure of like what is the purpose to it all, right? I think when Jupiter was direct between May 25th until October 9th, you would have been excited about studying, about publishing your work, about teaching, writing. There's been like potentially a lot of different things that piqued your attention, that grabbed your attention. And when Jupiter goes retrograde, some of these things don't feel inspiring. They don't feel exciting to you anymore. Maybe you're questioning what's the point to it all, right? Like feeling a sense of like loss and lack of direction, and feeling a little bit confused is likely here. And you may notice that because you're feeling uncertain, your traveling slows down, maybe a project you've been working on no longer feels exciting. And so of course with the retrograde of Jupiter in the 9th house, it's the time to reconnect with your guiding principles, with your beliefs, and maybe work on building more self-belief and self-worth, and like reading books on philosophy, reading books on meditation, reading books on like achieving your goals and building confidence. So like instead of directing your attention towards all these possibilities and exciting projects that are glittery and sparkly, it is better at this time to recommit to your goals and focus on your sort of interests like, I guess, you know, what I'm trying to say, like, instead of focusing on a variety of projects, focus on yourself. Focus on your driving force and your guiding principles, and maybe like things that always inspired you. And sometimes during the retrograde, you may actually find that traveling back to the place that you wanted to go to for a long time or have been to already can inspire you. Learning about different cultures can inspire you. Picking up a book about Buddhism may inspire you, and things like that. Let me know how it resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Scorpio rising, Jupiter begins its retrograde on October 9th in your 8th house, and until February 4th, you may be rethinking give and take dynamics in relationships and asking what is fair. And in the process, like, I think there will be a lot of sort of self-discovery and self-understanding. Jupiter, you know, let's say when Jupiter was direct, you may have joined in forces with somebody, hired a new employee, moved in with your partner, started a business, made some kind of investment, and now that Jupiter is retrograde, you're maybe rethinking some of those decisions and maybe potentially undoing some of those choices, right? Or reevaluating what is worth your time, what is not worth your time, because chances are with Jupiter being in Gemini, the sign of its fall, you maybe have done too many things or committed to things too fast, right? And like, with the retrograde, we are focusing a lot on the internal self-development. We're asking ourselves important questions. And so here you're very much asking which relationships, which commitments, which collaborations fulfill your spiritual, soulful purpose. Which soul contracts are worthy, right? And which ones take off your voice like an Ariel and the Little Mermaid. With Ariel and Ursula. So having to like take a step back, right? Learning to maybe negotiate and compromise and talk about important things. 8th house is all about give and take. And Jupiter in general makes it easier for you to trust other people, to welcome other people. But with the retrograde, chances are there is some type of like renegotiation that needs to happen, you know, maybe some type of adjustment that needs to happen. It's a great time for therapy, for honest conversations, for research. You know, Jupiter retrograde can also suggest that since it's the house of other people's resources, that maybe some of the other people's resources are being pulled back, that maybe your partner is going through a sense of time, like they're going through a period when some of their resources are less available. They're maybe going through some kind of, you know, financially a bit tough period. And so an opportunity to like reconnect in the relationship, reevaluate things, and get closer through being honest and through talking about fairness and coming up with things that are truthful for you are likely, right? So also trust your intuition, because 8th house is a very intuitive place. So maybe watch out for like, you know, relationships and partnerships that are brand new, that are tying you down, or have some kind of like read the fine print, and definitely do not rush to sign contracts and join forces with other people. If you're feeling like, you know, you could use a little bit more optimism and abundance in your life, Jupiter in Taurus candle is really good for you. This was Jupiter from May 2023 until May 2024. If you've noticed blessings in your relationships at that time and you'd like to capture some of that, this could be a great choice for you. I also think, I think, you know, with this transit, with like 8th house being the house of other people's resources and other people's money, I think there is that opportunity to very much like streamline who you relate with and how you relate with, and like what is worth your time and what is not, which is something I said already. If you're looking for a personal reading, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. We can talk about your relationship, your year to come, or your natal chart. Moving on to Sagittarius rising. For you guys, Jupiter is retrograding through your 7th house. And with Jupiter being direct in the 7th house, there could have been a lot of focus on relationships. And it's a young Jupiter. It could have taken on a lot of new things, right? Like maybe you've moved in with a partner, maybe you got engaged, maybe you took a loan together or something like that. And so with Jupiter being retrograde, there might be a sense of like slow down, needing to review some things, needing to figure out how fair things are, how balanced things are, needing to maybe take a step back on some of those actions that you have taken together, right? There might be an opportunity to address some of the challenges, and maybe a partner goes through a bit of a difficult time, and this shows you what is beneath it all. I think like Jupiter retrograde in the 7th house could be very much the time to connect with a partner closer, but you might realize what is underneath it all, right? Like you might, as Jupiter is retrograding, the gifts are less abundant, the partner is maybe going through a bit of a difficult time, and you're getting to see honestly and realistically what is there, right? Like, is there enough connection? Is there enough forgiveness? Is there enough understanding to keep the relationship going? Exes might be coming back into your life, right? 7th house always represents the past. So maybe someone, a partner, a business opportunity from the past, a contract, a client might be knocking on your door, and with you being a bit more introspective and spiritual, you're maybe questioning whether it is worth pursuing or not. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'd be happy to talk about your natal chart, your year to come, or your relationship. Now, if you are a Capricorn rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your 6th house. And here you are looking at your work schedule, at your everyday life, right? 6th house is the place of work, health, and service. And so when it comes to work, you may be dealing with some roadblocks. You may be dealing with more frustrations, with delays, with bosses, colleagues, people who are not doing their job, maybe expecting a lot from you. With habits, you might be reviewing habits, which ones serve you, which ones don't. Your health, your diet, your exercise. There's a lot of, I think, instead of like outer progress and outer achievement and grabbing as many responsibilities and projects as you can take, instead this becomes a bit more introspective, and you become a little bit more focused on like, well, but which projects are building up your health, right? Like if you're working at a, I don't know, at a national park, for example, that job perhaps allows you to be in nature, and maybe it's hard, but it's rewarding, versus if you're working somewhere you hate and feel frustrated at the end of the day, maybe it's the time to change something, right? So this one I think is quite literal. It's like, how can you create a better work-life balance by focusing on creating a healthier version of you? Healthier body results in a healthier mind, results in a healthier routines, healthier life. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are an Aquarius rising, Jupiter is going retrograde in your 5th house of pleasure, romance, children, competitive activities, right? Sort of having fun, going out, joy, inspiration. So with Jupiter being direct in your 5th house, you may have started dating, you may have started new creative projects, you may have put a child in a new school or a new daycare. And so when Jupiter is retrograding, you are, of course, a lot more introspective, and maybe you're questioning some of those decisions, right? So a relationship may run into a situation that is a little bit difficult. Maybe you're feeling uninspired, maybe you're feeling like the spark sort of went away, and now you're questioning whether this relationship had potential to begin with, and like if it has, maybe it's the time to work on it. Maybe it's the time to remind yourself why you got attracted to your partner in the first place. With a child's kindergarten, maybe you need to rethink that. Maybe you need to pull them out, put them in another school or something. Exes might be coming back into your life. Some old projects may be revived. And like, you know, sometimes 5th house rules the energy of like opulence and doing too many things. too many fun projects, too many passion projects, too many pleasurable activities. So needing to dial that back, needing to maybe bring in some of not so gluttonous pleasures, but maybe more spiritual joy, and, you know, like focus on sort of soulful, balanced connections and balanced relationships over those that are sexual and maybe kind of short-lived or satisfactory, but only for a short time. You may have to rethink that. Let me know how this resonates, and if you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are a Pisces rising, Jupiter is retrograding in your 4th house. And when Jupiter was direct, starting in May 25th, you may have moved, you may have connected with family, you may have expanded your home, taken sort of like outside action to grow in the home and family. When Jupiter is retrograde, some of that outside progress might slow down. You may run into renovation project delay. You may run into like you were buying a home, something slows down, or you get like a rejection. And it may feel like, you know, things are not going your way, but in reality, that is likely to be an opportunity for you to rethink what is it that you actually even want. Because sometimes a contract falling through, a house not getting a certain house, not getting a certain apartment can actually be a blessing, because maybe you're not supposed to be there. You're maybe also rethinking some family dynamics and having conversations about childhood, revisiting childhood topics, maybe healing something from the past that might become more apparent to you, how your childhood is still present in your adulthood and how it still affects you. Feeling like, you know, like retrograde can also indicate that you're moving back to a place you once lived, that you're moving back to a period in history, that you're moving back with your style, you're moving back with your parents. But also, you know, like 4th house is the place of comfort and security. So on a deeper, more like spiritual level, the question here is like, what makes you comfortable? What makes you secure? And do you have the practices around comfort and security? Do you meditate? Do you journal? Do you take walks? Do you sing in the shower? What kind of practices feed your soul and make you feel at home? And that doesn't always have to do with a physical home. It could be about practices, spirituality, religion, faith, astrology, anything that makes you feel more grounded. And this will be your time to explore those things. Let me know how this resonates. If you're looking for more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I am filming this video way ahead of time because I'll be away in October. So my October content will be all from the months prior. So I'm not taking any clients in October because I'm away, but you can definitely book a reading for November or December. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good time with this retrograde and it's not gonna slow you down too much. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.